Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon's presentation of the local streets and roads fiscal year funding, eligibility, technical training, and program discussion. Please note, we have instructions on this Zoom logistics webpage. We have also uploaded into the chat system a copy of the presentation in which you will find this page as well to help you navigate through Zoom webinar. This is our first time other than this morning's session and a prior test session using the Zoom webinar system. It's a little bit different than a regular Zoom meeting. So please bear with us as we may have a few hiccups along the way, but we do appreciate your patience. We are also working to allow access to a few last minute registrants. So if you could just give us about 3 or 4 minutes, we will begin shortly. Please take this time to go ahead again and download the attachment in the chat system. And we will begin here momentarily again. Thank you. If you do not see the attachment, please scroll up and make sure that you are going to the very top of the chat in the system. Okay, you will see an attachment is the very first conversation or indicator within the chat itself, followed by a message by a member of our team. So please make sure that you scroll to the very top. We will periodically be reattaching it throughout for those who are joining us. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us today for the Local Streets and Roads Fiscal Year 23-24 Funding Eligibility, Technical Training, and Program Discussion. My name is Alicia Sequeira. I am the Local Streets and Roads Program Manager here at the Commission. I am also joined by Celeste Acevas, a member of our Local Streets and Roads Program staff, and Zach Taylor, who is assisting us with today's webinar functions. And so they will be manning the Q&A chat. And if you raise your hand because you'd like to speak and ask a question over the phone or over the computer, you're more than welcome to do so, and we will be working on that. Today's training objectives. We will be going over a program discussion, very briefly, program roles and responsibilities, fiscal year program schedule, fiscal year funding eligibility, proposed project list submittal. CalSmart will be doing a live demonstration as well. Frequently asked questions and resources. Again, if you have the ability to, please download the training slides so that you can walk through this. You can also log on to CalSmart later on as we're doing this if you have two screens, and sort of walk through the process since the system is in fact open. So to start with, for program discussion, as some of you may be aware, every so many years, roughly about 2 years, we do a guideline update for our program in case there's any legislation that went through or there is clarification that is needed as a part of our program guidelines. And what we like to do before we start any formal discussions about program updates or guideline updates, we like to reach out to you as our stakeholders and encourage you to let us know your feedback of things within the program discussion or regarding the program itself that you would like to see updated or clarified within the guidelines. Please note, we cannot update or make changes to statute. So things such as the program eligibility requirement, project list submittal requirement, and adoption via a resolution, or the reporting requirements for the expenditure reporting and maintenance of effort. These are things that we cannot make changes to because they are statutorily mandated. But other things that we could potentially make changes to would be things such as the schedule, which we've done before, as well as certain language maybe that's in there, how we classify or identify certain things within the program or processes. So please feel free to review our guidelines and provide us feedback using the Local Streets and Roads program email. In addition to that, if you have any CalSmart recommendations that you would like to make, we'll touch on those later, and you can submit those recommendations as well via the email. But I just wanted to open that up to all of you and let you know that these are things that we would like you to start thinking about and bringing to our attention as you see fit. So jumping into the program roles and responsibilities. Very simply put, for the California Transportation Commission, which we will refer to as the Commission throughout this training, it is our responsibility to develop and adopt the Local Streets and Roads program reporting guidelines. We are to receive and review your proposed project list and expenditure reports that come in from the cities and counties. We review them for eligibility and compliance. We then adopt and transmit a list of cities and counties that are eligible to receive the road maintenance and rehabilitation account. These are your SB1 funds. They are under this account. It is our job to then notify the state controller's office of who was deemed eligible per our action and review, and then they can start dispersing those funds. It is also our responsibility to aggregate and provide statewide program information to the legislature annually, as well as post the information that we receive from all of you onto our website. This means the project lists submitted by those cities and counties as they are entered into CalSmart for fiscal year eligibility, as well as the expenditure reporting detail that you provide us each year. As it pertains to the roles and responsibilities of you, the cities and counties, our stakeholders, It is your responsibility to develop and submit an adopted list of projects to the Commission each and every fiscal year in which you wish to receive funding eligibility. If you do not do this, funding eligibility is not able to be obtained, and therefore you will not be receiving your funds for that fiscal year, which are formulaic. It is your responsibility to develop and submit an expenditure report to the Commission each and every fiscal year. Again, you have to submit this to us so that we can provide that information to the state legislature. This is a part of the transparency and accountability aspect of the statute that authorized these funds. State Controller's Office. It is their responsibility to apportion and disperse the road maintenance and rehabilitation account funds to the cities and counties that is consistent with the list that we adopt and transmit to them. They also oversee other local government spending requirements, including the maintenance of effort reviews and determinations. That is not something within the Commission's purview. So it's important that you make sure that all of those issues are taken up directly with the State Controller's Office. Something we like to remind everybody, there is roughly a 2-month, it's a 6-week turnaround time from the time that the revenues are collected into this account to when they are then dispersed. So if you are deemed eligible to receive funds in this program, you will not receive them until, how do I say this? So September will encompass your July funding apportionment that you received. All right, so everything is about 2 months past. So although you may submit for eligibility in July, we then adopt the commission list later at our August commission for eligibility, and then come September, you will receive your first installment of your apportionment. This is their financing and apportionment disbursement calendar and record. It is not something that we at the commission have the ability to change or adjust. And so that means that technically you're receiving funds for each fiscal year starting in September, and it ends each August. So again, that 2-month delay. So for the program schedule, your fiscal year 2023 and 2024 program schedule, this was a schedule that was adopted in 2021. And what you're going to see here is July 1st. July 1st is when your initial list for projects proposed and adopted by resolution are due to the commission. This is due via CalSmart. It is at our August commission meeting that we then adopt this initial list of eligibility, and we must transmit that to the State Controller's Office prior to August 31st, so that by September 22nd, you can receive your first installment. Our subsequent eligibility is then due September 30th. This means that if you are for whatever reason unable to meet the July 1st eligibility requirements, you have an opportunity to receive subsequent eligibility on or by September 30th by submitting your proposed project list adopted by resolution. It is then our responsibility at the commission that at our October meeting, should we have anybody who submits for subsequent eligibility, that we then present and make a motion for the list to be adopted. Once adopted, we will then transmit that to the State Controller's Office within that same month. This means that in the month of November, you will then receive September and October, the disbursements that you did not receive in September and October, and then November will have all three, right? So you'll be in a 2-month delay in your funds received. And then December 1st is when we do our annual expenditure report. So what does this mean? By July 1st, we make sure that we keep our system open until the stroke of midnight on July 1st. So you have all of this time to start submitting or getting together your information in order to submit. And what you have to do as a part of submit is upload a copy of the executed resolution and project list that was adopted by your city council or county board of supervisors for that fiscal year in CalSmart. You must then create a list of projects that mirrors what was in the resolution and project list adopted for that fiscal year in this CalSmart system. And then you must submit for us to be able to review. Again, if it's not done by July 1st, you will be missing initial eligibility and you need to seek subsequent eligibility by September 30th, on or before September 30th. In order for it to be considered a compliant and complete resolution, we will take questions here shortly, so we'll just have a moment. So in order for your fiscal year funding eligibility adopted resolution to be considered compliant or complete, it must be specific to the upcoming fiscal year RMRA funds. That means what you are adopting right now or in the coming months must be very specific to fiscal year 23-24. It cannot be a part of another budgetary action or project adoption. This needs to be a standalone action and item that is brought forth. You must include the statutorily mandated assurances. These are things that we do have in a sample resolution that is posted online. It will be accessible to all of you. It is currently accessible to everyone. We'll tell you where to get that. But in those mandated assurances, this includes things such as your funds will be used in accordance with statute. Also, that city and county will abide by the mandated eligibility and reporting requirements that are a part of the statute. And a condition of your funding. It must also include the statutorily mandated project detail. This includes a project description, location, useful life, estimated schedule. It must include the date adopted and signed by someone with official signatory authority on behalf of the city or county. This means that in order for us to consider it executed, we have to have a signature on that document that you send us, and it has to be for, the current fiscal year that you're in, and it's the action to adopt for the upcoming fiscal year. All right. If it does not have these things, they will be deemed non-compliant again. So for the proposed project list, the list of projects that are proposed that you are adopting should only identify those projects that are actually intended to utilize the upcoming fiscal year's RMRA funds or apportionments that you're intended to receive. This means newly proposed projects that will be using funds that are received for 23-24, or previously proposed or adopted projects or reported on projects that are what we refer to as a multi-year funded project, and that those projects are intending to use in part or in whole the 23-24 funds. The list of projects must be adopted and submitted to the commission each year. There's no exception. Do not resubmit the prior year's adopted resolution and list. The list and resolution, again, must be current. This is why some have done a 2 or 5 year plan that they've adopted, and they submit that and think that their resolution and that list are good for the next 2 or 5 years. It is not, and we do make them go back and for another action and update it. So what needs to be included in that proposed project detail in order to be considered compliant and complete per the statute and guidelines? It is the following, and I know I've already touched on this, but there's a reason why I'm touching on it twice, and it is because without a doubt, every single year, this is exactly what gets left out that is resulting in submittals being deemed non-compliant or incomplete and having to be sent back. And if you wait until the last minute to do this, and we say that it's non-compliant, you will miss either initial eligibility or subsequent eligibility and risk not receiving your funds. So it's really important that you pay attention to the detail. So for this, it is the proposed project description. This means that we need you to briefly describe the type of work that is going to be performed based on the component or the phase that you will be funding with your RMRA. So for that matter, if you are not funding the design pre-construction portions of the project, we don't need the project description or detail to include any mention of pre-construction or design or anything like that if that's not what you're using your RMRA for. If you are using your RMRA for that portion and what we call component, then you want to identify that. You want to, if you're using it for both construction and pre-construction, you need to identify both schedules for pre-construction and construction and include in the description what is going to be included in both your pre-construction and construction work that you're funding with RMRA. For project locations, citywide and countywide is only acceptable when you are doing what is called a procurement or operational needs type of project, or a project that is in pre-construction in which specific locations or segments have not yet been identified, right? So a lot of times this is going to be when you're doing like a feasibility study or you're in design and you don't know all the segments that you're going to be doing in your work. And so you may not have that ability to provide the information at the time. And so that's okay. And we understand that. But if it's not in that phase and you already know the locations and segments that you're doing the work, you do need to provide your location detail. It should at a minimum describe the neighborhood or area in which the work will be performed, not just saying zone 6 or maintenance area B or C, something like that, right? You can say a general location description, a general neighborhood that someone, a constituent in your area would be able to easily identify and where the work is being performed. Each individual segment does not need to be listed for this purpose in CalSmart, but something that is identifiable. If you do have to use, maintenance field location language such as zones, you can go ahead and make sure that you attach, or not attach, I'm sorry, include a link in the location field for your website where they can find the specific location information or list of segments, okay? So as long as someone in the public can still find it and access that information, that is what is important. For the proposed schedule for completion based on, again, your phase and component. So if you're only funding construction, you're only going to give us your schedule based on construction, if that's all you're funding with RMRA. If you're doing both pre-construction and construction, you need to provide us both schedules beginning to end for both. You need to just provide the month and year that it's estimated to project start and completion for both of those segments or components that you're funding. Again, these are estimates. They do not have to be exact. We know that it's going to adjust once you actually do start spending the money and you report on it in your expenditure report. We're going to get more exact dates, and we understand that. The estimated useful life of an improvement, again, these are going to be that you are providing the average of the useful life for work that will be performed. I understand that this can be difficult when you are purchasing materials, when you are purchasing or doing service agreements for your vehicles that are performing the work, things of that nature. But, if you have a 1-year service contract, then it's a 1-year service life, right? Useful life of the project or thing that you're purchasing. And the great thing about this program is that unlike the other SB1 funded programs, you do, according to Article 19 of the California Constitution, Section B, you have the ability to use these funds on your pre-construction work for the purchase of materials or equipment or servicing of equipment to perform your public works duties. And when I say those public works duties, I'm talking about the actual work that's being performed on the field with your own labor force, things of that nature. So you have the ability to use the funds there. And we provide a greater description of that in our eligibility checklist, which we will direct you to later. So the project lists adopted by resolution and submitted to the commission without these mandatory details being provided, again, they are going to be determined non-compliant and incomplete, and you will be given a corrective action plan indicating a resubmittal due date if there is one available within the time frame that needs to be done prior to adoption. And so what this means is if you're waiting until subsequent eligibility, you submit on September 30th, and 10 days later, we are going to the commission to adopt, you will not have the time to correct. So you need to make sure that these are compliant. So what does that mean? Here are some tips that we have for you to help you with this. We want you to review the funding eligibility checklist that is provided in CalSmart. It's under the Help and Resources tab. It's going to provide the following: your RMRA funding purpose and eligible project detail, your resolution requirements, a project list requirement, as well as the draft resolution. Again, this is, and also we have resources tabs that you can select within the document itself that'll navigate you around to give you additional help and assistance. If your list will not be adopted prior to July 1st, please contact our local streets and roads staff immediately at the general program email. The reason why we ask you to do this is allow us to work with you. You may not have the ability to have your resolution adopted prior to July 1st. But let's say that it's happening a week later or 2 weeks later, and you have all of your other information together. Go ahead and submit your list and your draft resolution into the system for our review, and we can start reviewing it and give you a temporary or tentative approval pending final compliance, which would be the execution of the resolution and our receipt of the signature. And then prior to taking the resolution and proposed project list for adoption, I cannot stress this enough. Please send to our staff your proposed list and that resolution draft for our review. We review hundreds of them prior to initial submittal and subsequent submittal. And by doing this, we have saved a number of jurisdictions from erroneously reporting projects and adopting projects that they didn't need to readopt or relist. Also, we've saved them from not being deemed compliant and having to go for a secondary action in front of their city council or county board of supervisors. No one wants you to have to do that. And so if we can help you avoid that in any way by ensuring that you're compliant from the get-go, that's exactly what we want to do. So before we get into the California State Multimodal Application and Reporting Tool known as CalSmart, are there any questions regarding the resolution or project list detail? Okay, sorry, we thought we had some people with their hands raised, but we don't see this so far. You can, Hossein, you can just, if you raise your hand, we can unmute you and then you can speak to ask your question. Additionally, we have the resolution. Some people have asked if we have the resolution for you to see, a sample resolution. Yes, it is on our CTC website on local streets and roads. It's also available in the chat. It's been added. In addition to that, it is available on CalSmart. So do we have anyone else who's raised their hand? All right, so we're going to unmute some folks to speak.
Hi, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name, Hossein Ajide. You're unmuted.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the information. Just a clarifying question regarding the specific item that this needs to be. I'm assuming you're referring to the resolution, right? The resolution should be a standalone document and should not include any other item. However, is it possible to have the resolution part of a separate staff report? So basically, we have a staff report that may include 2 or 3 different resolutions. Since you are not requiring the staff report, I'm assuming that if you have a standalone signed resolution, that would meet your requirements. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. So we do need to make sure that the standalone resolution, again, it is, just make sure. A standalone resolution is a part of it. It can be a part of a staff report, but again, your action itself, we want to make sure is a standalone item. That is the request, so that it is not something that gets lost within other actions being taken. The point of this is to make sure that you have an opportunity for your constituents to comment and clearly identify when this action is being taken, if they want to come and have their voices heard as a part of their public statement and public right, correct, as a members of your constituency. So ideally, what you're saying, although it is eligible to do it that way, it's not something I would necessarily recommend. We have seen, I wouldn't encourage you to do it that way for a couple of reasons. But one of the biggest ones is that we have seen a number of complaints in the media, and then also from constituents to the legislature, where people have complained that they are getting buried. These resolutions or actions are being buried within other actions being taken at public meetings. And it does have to occur at a regular public meeting, not a special meeting or a committee meeting. It needs to be at a regular city council meeting or county board of supervised public meeting. So a regular agenda meeting, nothing that is like a special meeting to the sense.
Yeah, I mean,
we will continuously be re-uploading the slides to the chat. And then we keep getting questions about if locations can be added after the adoption. So locations can be added after, let's say if you adopted it 1 week and then 2 weeks later, you're putting it into CalSmart and some maybe locations were being added or dropped off. You could give a list of the locations as they appeared in your resolution and then state that these locations are subject to change pending the delivery of the project. That is a totally valid thing to put in there, and I definitely always recommend that you add that in there because these are just proposed and estimated at this time. If it is after you've already submitted and we have approved it and it's being posted and you want to make changes to the location, you will have to wait until the expenditure reporting period for that year, and then you will go in and update the location or scope detail at that time. I hope that makes sense. All right. So if we don't have any more, I'm going to keep going with our slide. So again, CalSmart is, and I'm just going to go back one more. CalSmart is what is called the California State Multimodal Application and Reporting Tool. This is a tool that has grown leaps and bounds over the last few years since we originated it in 2018. Okay, we developed it between 2017 and 18, and it has grown in several ways to where now other programs are using this system. And so you need to make sure that you're aware of what you're signing up for when you sign up and you register in the system and how to use it. So with that in mind, CalSmart is the only method in which a submittal will be accepted for the adopted list of proposed projects. It is currently open for you to utilize and will remain open until July 1 of 2023. So again, July 1 at 11:59 p.m. 2023, and then it'll close down until subsequent submittal period is then reopened. If you are not currently registered in CalSmart, we recommend that you go to the CalSmart website. Again, you can access it through the links here, or you can go into the local streets and roads website and access from there to get to CalSmart. And so I'll walk you through how to do that as well. One of the beautiful things about CalSmart is that each agency can have multiple registered users. This is to eliminate the need to share or utilize a single email and share and utilize a single password. This is where things get corrupted or people get locked out, loss of access occurs. And so we don't want that to happen. The way that this system works is you can have multiple users who are accessing the exact same system. And let's say one of you starts entering, you have to stop and save your progress, and then somebody else has to go in to finalize, or they need to go in and review your work before it is submitted and finally submitted. That's totally fine, and you can do that, and this allows for you to do that without having to share or jeopardize passwords and emails. We had somebody in an earlier training that said that their one person who had access is no longer with them, and so they need to change the email. What ends up by happening is we lock that account. No one will have access to it through that particular email, and a new registrant needs to come in. Again, this is why it's beneficial to have multiple users who are registered in the system. So for our current CalSmart users and those who will become registered, it is very important that you remember that this system will lock you out after 3 failed login attempts. This is why we tell you to reset after 2 failed attempts, because we will not receive a notification that you've been locked out unless you notify us that you've been locked out. And then that also can cause a delay in the time for us to turn around and then show you or unlock the system and allow you to then reset your password. Whereas if you reset your password, you're controlling your time, your access, and you're just eliminating any of that sort of headache or frantic phone calls. But again, if you do find yourself locked out, please email the LSR inbox, program inbox, and we will go ahead and unlock you, and then you can do your request to reset the password from there. So what the registration page looks like when you get into the system, and this is a little bit of an older snapshot, there's a few additional programs that are in there now, but when you go into the system, for the purposes of this program and this training, please only select Local Streets and Roads Program, LSR, on the programs that you're registering for after you've included your name, your email, phone number, contact information, job title, and the agency that you're representing. And then you'll be going in and putting in your password. But the reason why I tell you to only, if this is the program that you work in, only do Local Streets and Roads, unless you know that your agency is participating in other programs that are using this system and will be using the system that you will be in charge of working in. It just can become very cumbersome. You can get notifications from those other programs that do not pertain to you, and you will think that you are, let's say, missing a deadline for reporting or eligibility in these other programs, that you have other things that you need to do, and then you contact us frantic, not understanding what's going on, thinking that you've missed a deadline, or you are reporting to them on something that you shouldn't be reporting on because maybe there's someone else in your office that does that. And so we just want to make sure that everybody is only accessing what they need to, and we're eliminating any additional stress. Once you have registered, for those who haven't, you will receive a request email asking you to verify your email. If you do not verify your email, hit the click here button to verify that you've requested to register. It will not send us a link opening and activating your account so that we can approve you for use. All right, and there's no way for us to do that other than to resend you a verification email asking you to go into spam or to something else in your system to try and find it to make sure that you've done that action. There's been 2 very random cases where someone's server just blocked our emails altogether coming from the system. And so they had to go in and do something to allow them to come through. So then once we've received them and we've granted you access, you will receive this secondary, oops, not that. This secondary email that says that you've been granted access and you can now log in. So before I get into the live demonstration, do we have any questions regarding registration or getting access to CalSmart? All right, so I don't. Okay, so we do have 2 hands up. For those of you asking how long it takes to be approved, and who do you contact to remove an account? Whoever needs to remove an account, just please email Local Streets and Roads, and we will go ahead and take care of that. You just have to provide us the email and the name of the person so that we can lock it. And then for anyone who's saying that they're not able to see the slides, are you not able to see the slides in the presentation live, or are you not able to access the slides for downloading? Just want to make sure that you're seeing what's on my screen, which should show registration confirmation. Okay, as for downloading, if you're still having issues accessing the download, we will send a copy of the slides to everyone who attended today. So don't worry about that. We'll make sure that you do get them. As well as the recording of today's training, that'll also be covered. And then for anyone asking if how long it takes to get approved, honestly, it's just as soon as they come in, we are checking and overseeing the Local Streets and Roads email regularly and checking it throughout the day. So as soon as we get notifications that they come in, and when we're able to see them, we will address and then go in and approve as soon as we can. It doesn't usually take too long, but days like today, it's going to take a little bit longer because everyone who works in the program is currently doing this training. A individual county, like I said, or user can have multiple, or I'm sorry, an individual county or agency city can have multiple users. They just identify that individual city or county as their user or as their agency that they're representing. I'm sorry, this is my second one today and my voice is going dry. And so, yes, you can have multiple users for a single city or county. A individual user tied to one email cannot have access to multiple cities and counties, if that makes sense. So it just can't happen in the reverse. And then I think we have a couple of hands that are raised, and so Zach's going to go ahead and address them.
Diane Jensen, you are unmuted and free to ask your question. Diane, you would just.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I think you might have answered it. So one account essentially equals one email address.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're in a city and you want a couple different users and we each want to use our own email address, we would need 2 accounts.
Yeah, so if there are 2 of you that want to access it, you both just need to individually register under your individual email for the agency and create your own password, and you'll be given access, and you can both access the same information and pick up where the other person left off.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Do we have anybody else with their hand raised? All right. So hopefully I've addressed everyone's questions that came up in the chat as well as via the call. So now we're going to go into our live demonstration. Give me one moment just to switch out. So first thing I want to do is show you the local streets and roads website. And what you see in here, you come down, we have our guidelines tab, we have the current cycle, which right now all we've had is our technical training. You can see all prior program cycle information, project lists by the fiscal years, expenditure reports, and here you see the city, county, CalSmart resources. When you are doing that, you can identify that we have our expenditure report quick guide. We also have our funding eligibility checklist. This is one of the easiest ways that you can identify and find the checklist that I've pointed out before. In here, sorry, it's scrolled out to where I last had it. In this individual checklist, you will get an overview, eligibility overview regarding the program, the funding eligibility checklist itself, which essentially is everything that I said you had to do in order to be compliant with your resolution and your project list. In this slide, we have it in a nice and neat little checklist format. Any additional information that you need regarding submittal process, a sample resolution, as well as all of our program resources. Again, everything in here is, for the most part, it's linkable. So we try and make it sort of a one-stop shop for you when you're accessing this. Again, your adopted resolution or a staff report. We have it all broken down in here and exactly what needs to be included, what can or cannot. The list of project detail information is broken down, the different types of eligible projects. And something I really want to point out, because we've had this issue before in the past, is that when you're doing a complete streets type of project, it must be done in conjunction with any other allowable project. So essentially, if there is paving, road rehab being done, if it's a safety project, things of that nature, traffic light signaling, anything like that is also being included. You need to make sure that you're identifying it, because if you're just doing bike lanes, if you're just doing sidewalks and crosswalks, things of that nature, and nothing else is being done, or ADA curb ramps, it is not considered solely eligible just by being complete street work. It does need to be in conjunction with something else that is eligible. Your CalSmart submittal process and the checklist to go with that, tips for reviewing your documents for consistency, the CalSmart registration, all of that's in there. Attend your technical training, refer to it, your program schedule, so your funding eligibility schedule, all of that's included in here too, as well as our sample resolution. What you're going to see on here is that this is in a PDF, but if I come back here to our page and I go to the calsmart.dot.ca.gov, that's going to take us to the CalSmart site, and I'll walk you through that. But before I do that, I want to take you down to program training and materials. So the training and materials that you'll have for today with all of the slides are going to be uploaded directly here. This is currently just our registration flyer. You will get the actual training material will be uploaded and put on here, as well as a link to the recorded version of this as well. So you'll have everything that you need in one shop or one stop. So when I select CalSmart, right, that link on the page, and I selected that, it took me directly into the login page. But something I want to do before I do the login page, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that that was there, is that you are going to see that on the sample resolution, it says, whereas the city or county will receive an estimated certain amount of money in RMRA funding in the fiscal year, and you're going to identify the fiscal year, the appropriate fiscal year. The reason why I'm showing you this is that because in here, we have a link to where you can get those estimates. It is not something that we at the commission provide. No state agency actually provides this. This is contracted out by the League of California Cities and is also put together through the California State Association of Counties using the data and the projections that they have based on the governor's budget and most recent budget. So when we select that link, you're going to see it takes you directly to this page, the California Local Government Finance Almanac, or californiacityfinance.com. And you're going to scroll down in Hot Topics and select Local Streets and Roads Funds. And you see HUDA. Local Streets and Roads Funds. And so I will be addressing additional questions regarding eligibility projects here in just a minute. Local Streets and Roads Funds, HUDA and SB1. So this is your RMRA, Local Streets and Roads Funds. When you click on that, you'll see what comes up directly is transportation funding sources, local streets and roads. You could do the explainer, which is giving you all the information as to why and how this funding came about and the formula. And then we have the local streets and roads just doing the estimates. When you select on that, you're going to get a PDF. And for purposes of today's training, I'm going to do a live sample of the town of Windsor. So I'm going to do Control F, and I'm going to type in Windsor. As you see, this is what comes up. Windsor, right here. And I'm going to go all the way across. If I go to the top of the page, I see that I have 2022-23, HUDA, RMRA, and then the total. I don't need to know my 22-23 numbers because that's not the resolution I'm working on right now. I'm working for the 23-24. I don't pull the HUDA because that's a totally different program, Highway User Tax Account. I'm going to only pull from the road maintenance and rehab account. And so scroll down again to what my city is, and that's the number that I'm going to put into my resolution. So again, back in here, I'm going to log in to CalSmart with my information ready. Once I've logged in, again, I'm a registered user, correct? So I'm going to see, here's my name, here's my agency that I'm representing. So all of that is accurate. I'm going to go where it says current program within the dashboard, and I'm going to select on local streets and roads program. I get this nifty little message that tells me it's currently accepting proposed projects for the current fiscal year, 23-24, and it'll be open until July 1. I have over here fiscal year proposed project list submittals, expenditure reporting, my profile, and then help and resources. I want to select on help and resources. You'll see the same checklist we just went over is also included here. The sample fiscal year SB1 project list resolution that was included at the end of that, but was in a PDF, is also available to you in a Word document. This way, you will be able to go in and customize it as you deem fit and need to. If your resolutions don't look like this and they have a little bit of a different structure, that's fine. But what we want you to focus on are, again, making sure that you're clearly identifying the purpose of the resolution, that it's for the correct fiscal year, which will be 23-24, that it's directly tied into Senate Bill One, Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. What you are required to do, which is a part of accountability and transparency provisions that are as a part of you accepting these funds, you ensure that you will comply. What you have to do to comply, and in order to be deemed eligible, and I'm going to point this out again, you're going to notice that I do this a lot about this particular thing in regards to description, location, proposed schedule, project completion, and estimated useful life. It is in the resolution spelt out completely. Yet again, what we find in the resolution does not have the required information. And this is showing up in almost every resolution in which that does occur. So we just really want to make sure that you guys are paying attention and you're doing it correctly. Again, all of this is going to be customized. This is the 7th year in which the program is taking place and that you're receiving funding. There are only 2 cities throughout the history of the program that would not be able to say it's the 7th year. They elected not to come in a particular year for their own reasons. And so everyone else, unless you're one of those cities, that wouldn't be you, and you'd be saying that this is the 7th year in which you're receiving funds. We have an assurance in there of there being robust public engagement in order for how the city or county prioritize. Maybe you use a pavement management system, something of that nature. Just you're going to include something that identifies how you've come up with your priorities. The other thing in there is that the funding from SB1 will help you do what? You know, you can identify and provide sort of a summary of what it is that you will be able to do in the current fiscal year or the upcoming fiscal year and what you intend to do with it moving forward. This says in here 2018, 20 for the California statewide local streets and roads needs assessment report. The 2022, I believe, is now released and should be available on both CSAC and the league's website. If you're unable to find it, the 2020 was released a few years back, so that would be the most recent. 2018 is not the most current at this time. But that's where you're going to have some information as to whether or not your individual jurisdiction was identified as having your roads in excellent, good, at risk, or poor condition. And then your assurance of, you know, that whenever possible, you are going to try and use your funds to ensure that not just for basic maintenance and safety, but you're also investing whenever possible, again, in complete streets, infrastructure, using cutting edge technology, materials, practices, to help with like climate control, things of that nature. And then signature. Or I'm sorry, and then your resolution of your project list detail. You can build out your project list within your resolution. You can also have it so that it's an attachment, but all of the required detail must be in there, and you must cite, if it's an attachment, you've got to cite that you have it attached and what the attachment is and that it's properly linked. We have an area in here for you to be able to relist. And again, this is only if applicable. And if you have projects that are going to be using funds in the coming year. We'll see if we can find the published, if they've released the published 2022. I don't know if they have for sure. I know it is completed, but I haven't received a published report yet. But the 2020 is definitely out there. And so we can find that link for you and share it. But again, it is on the League of California Cities website. It's also on the California State Association of Counties website as well. So that's your resolution that you're going to then adopt. So back into our wonderful CalSmart system. We did have someone ask a question regarding eligibility of a project, asking why crosswalks are not considered alone an eligible project. So if a crosswalk is for safety, right? Like we had I know crosswalks are for safety. So would you just identify it as a complete streets project, or would you also identify it as safety? Are you identifying it in your description that it's for both safety, pedestrian access, pedestrian crossing, connections, whatever it is? I'm just saying it just needs to be, crosswalks probably weren't my best example, but I'm just saying it does need to be clearly aligned, that you're not just doing complete streets components, such as like only in adding a bike lane to something, you're not doing repaving, you're not rehabbing a portion of the road as a part of it. It's just because this is what the language states in the statute. It's what we have in the guidelines, is that it has to be a complete streets component, must be done in conjunction with. And usually a crosswalk is not a standalone project. It is also including like ADA compliance, traffic signals. And again, it is usually a part of a safety project. There are other things that are not. And so we just want to make sure that we're being very clear and concise and consistent with statute. And then I believe Celeste has just added the link to the 2020 report that is that is on CSAC's website for the needs assessment. So you should all have that in the chat. Okay, so back to the dashboard and navigating through CalSmart. Again, we were very fortunate. A couple of our jurisdictions, cities and counties, authorized us to use some of their draft resolutions that they submitted to us for review to sort of use them as an example and input their submittals. I may not do a complete submittal on their behalf right now. We may finish that for them later, but just to get it started so that you have an idea of what's going on. So once I'm back in the dashboard, again, you'll see I'm still in the local streets and roads program. I want to select on fiscal year proposed project list submittals. If I select here, manage fiscal year proposed project list submittals, I will be taken to a page that shows all my prior year submittals. You are not going to see, and they all have green check marks, which mean that they've been approved. Nothing in here can be edited. It cannot be altered in any way once you've selected, because we now have all rights to it at that point, and we don't allow you to make any changes once it's been approved on our end. So, but what you will see is that you have no way to add a project or create a new submittal in here. Going back to my dashboard, and I just want to, let's see. Over here on your top right corner, you see it says dashboard, submittals, reporting users. You can either go to dashboard where you'll see all the options you saw before, or you can select submittals. And for the purpose of this, I'm going to show us what it looks like under submittals. So again, I'm in the right place. It's telling me that it's the project list submittals page, and I want to go to create fiscal year proposed project list submittal. And what you see is that this is going to auto-populate my agency funding eligibility intake form. The system has codes that it automatically puts in there and whatnot. I'm not going to change the names of the contact or contact person for the purpose of this right now, but I want to make sure that you all know that if you have any changes that have occurred within your city or county and your contact names and contact people have changed, this is the time that you make that contact change. We've had several times where public works directors who are no longer public works directors are still showing up on there, and so we don't have the right people contact. If we have questions, or we need to get clarification on something and you as the submitter were not available. So just please make sure that that is always accurate. So what you do see here is support documentation, and there's an asterisk, which means that this is going to be required of you. And it's just to provide a brief description of what it is that you're attaching. And so for this, I'm going to say this is my draft resolution for fiscal year 23-24. I want to make sure that I know that I'm saying that this is my draft resolution, because you guys can put anything in here that you need to as sort of just a placeholder for your resolution. If you want to get in and start building out your list, you don't have the final resolution yet, your draft, an old version, whatever, but make sure that you're correctly indicating in there that you have your draft, so that if someone else is the one who comes in to finish up your job, or you forgot that you haven't uploaded the final version, you know that it still says draft. So you need to correct that. If this was the final version, I would say final signed resolution and then the fiscal year. And that's what I would put in, okay? So because it's not and it's a draft, we're going to keep that. Then we're going to go directly down here where it says select files to upload. We're going to choose our file for upload. I'm going to go to Town of Windsor. And I'm going to select that, double click. I've already done my choose file. We're good to go. Average network PCI. This is your pavement index, pavement condition index. Only if you have a pavement condition index of 80 or above, and you're doing one of the types of eligible work that is allowed if you have 80 or above, which is like transit facility type of work. Only if you're doing that do you need to provide your PCI and the month and year that it was last recorded, okay, and measured. But if you don't have that, you don't need to. If you want to include additional information, you definitely can. In the project description, you can also, in support documentation description, you can put in additional information. Sometimes what we see under additional information is people will put resolution, project list, second attachment, one new proposed, and one relisted. And that might be something that we see, and we always think that's really helpful to see that, because it kind of lets us know what we should expect when we're looking at your resolution, and then when we look at the list that you created in the system. So, you know, that's not required. It's not a required field, but it is definitely something that can be considered helpful. Project flexibility. This isn't in our resolution, but you can put it in your resolution, your sample resolution. There's a reason why we have it in here, because it is outlined in the statute. And so if there is something, and this is the beauty of local streets and roads, you may have a priority at the time of you doing your project list submittal and adoption. That's like, hey, we need to do A, B, and C, and this is what we're doing. And then we get an atmospheric river that has flooded all of us and destroyed tons and tons of roads, that now all of these roads and connection points and bridges need immediate work done on them, and all of our priorities have now changed. And so we can say in here, like, hey, when we're doing this proposed list, this is our best guess. This is based on the information that we have on available to us at the time, but pursuant to Streets and Highways Code, and here's the section, this list shall not limit the flexibility of an eligible city or county's ability to fund projects in accordance with the local streets and roads needs and priorities, so long as the projects are consistent with statute, meaning as long as they're eligible and you have to make a change or an adjustment because your priorities had to change throughout the course of the year, that's totally fine. The only thing that you have to do, should that happen, report it in the expenditure report for that fiscal year in which that occurred. That's the year that you need to make the update and the changes in your statuses. And this applies for anything, even if it's not storm related or fire related, whatever it is, we have priorities, things change, funding changes, availability for work changes in the way of like the contractors that you have that are available to perform that type of work that you need done. So we understand that, and that's the beauty of the program. You don't have to come to us for approval of a scope change or project list change or location change. If your individual city council or county board requires an additional action to make those changes, that's on you guys. but you do not have to come to us as the commission to get that approved. You don't have to take that type of action in order for us to say, okay, that's fine. All we're looking for you to do is actually report on that during your expenditure reporting for that relative year. So now that I've uploaded everything and I've shown you like that cool little bit of language in there, that again, I always encourage people to put into their resolutions. We don't have it in our sample resolution because it confused some people and caused some issues in the beginning. But it doesn't mean that it's not something that you can't put in there. And I strongly encourage you to do so because it is in line with statute. So I will select save and continue. Had I not filled something out, I would have gotten an error message that says this was not complete and you cannot submit, or you can't move on to the next page. So what you see here is previously reported. What it does take me to, since I completed everything in accordance to what was required, I have previously reported projects. The questions that we normally get, it's all in here. When should I relist a previously proposed projects? And again, this is for projects that are intended to utilize the 23-24. If these projects are not in your resolution that you adopt, right, and they're not a part of that list when you adopt them, you can't relist them in CalSmart. Not at this stage. You can report on them during expenditure reporting, but we will not let you relist them in the submittal process for the simple fact that it is not mirroring your proposed or adopted resolution in project list that your city or county took action on. So it still needs to mirror. Just because you see it here and you can see that you could relist it doesn't mean that you should, because if you didn't do it in your reso in the list adopted, it's not applicable here for the purposes of this. And so if you don't see them in the 23-24 list, you know, they may also show up in your 21-22 expenditure report. So go from the 20, you know, we always recommend look at your 21-22 expenditure report as well. See if you should be relisting from there. If a project appears in both your 21-22 expenditure report and your 22-23 proposed project list, relist it from the expenditure report. And you may say, why? That's ridiculous. Like, that was proposed, then we should relist it from the year it was proposed. No. You want to relist it from your expenditure report because that 22-23 proposed list was proposed 6 months prior to your last recorded detail or update to that project, which occurred during the expenditure reporting for 21-22, which occurred December 1. So you're doing this in July, possibly June, whatever, of 2022, but in December of 2022 or November of 2022, you were updating your expenditure report for the year that just closed. And if that project is showing up on both, your most current and recent data is from the expenditure report, not that proposed list. So you want to make sure that's the one that you pull it from. So I'm going to show you what the resolution is from who we're using as our example. And this is the town of Windsor. And so again, you know, they still need to put their resolution number on there. That'll come when they get that based on the agenda and their clerk, you know, when they assign the resolution numbers. But what I want to make sure that you see in here is that they have done a good job identifying the appropriate fiscal year for what they are taking action for. And that is specific to Senate Bill 1 and the act, correct? Right? So they're identifying themselves. It's all very clear. We do not have to question what this is. They have everything in here that we have identified as required within our, or that we recommend that you put in there per our sample resolution. For them, this is their 7th year in which they are receiving funds. They've identified how much they anticipate to receive for the appropriate fiscal year. We see it a lot where the prior year or prior 2 years fiscal year is still being identified because you guys are reusing the same resolution. Just make sure that you're updating the appropriate locations as needed. For those still asking about the 2022 link for the California statewide local streets and roads needs assessment, please know that may not be posted or published yet. I just know that it's been completed. The 2020 is available on the CSAC website. We will send that in an email. It has been included in the chat. We can resend it in the chat again. But when we send out the slides, we'll also send out that link as well. So just to keep going through, as you see, this funding, they identify that their funding is helping maintain and rehabilitate 45 streets this year, right? That's what they're identifying. They identified the 2020 local streets and roads needs assessment and what it is that they identified as their condition. The project list and overall investment of the local streets and their purposes of what they're focusing on. And then here is their project list detail, right? So I'm showing you this example and if Town of Windsor is on, we truly appreciate you and you did a wonderful job. But I am going to critique because we are looking at these constantly and I would, my team would absolutely hate me if I did not say that we would love it if you bullet pointed or broke out your project detail just a little bit so that it makes it easier for us to identify as we are reviewing everything. In this case, they didn't do anything wrong. It's still beautiful. It's wonderful. They've done a great job. What they are saying is that the following newly proposed project lists will be funded in part or solely by the fiscal year 23-24 funds, RMRA revenues, and they have identified it as the 2024 pavement preservation project. They're identifying that it'll resurface residential streets with these type 2 slurry seal. So they have their entire scope. They also include parts about it being for bicyclists and pedestrians, the streets that they're identifying. So their location is in there. So we have description, we have location. We have the estimated useful life of 7 years. So what you're going to see in the system is that we ask for a minimum and a maximum. And so we're just going to ask you to just average it out. You can guess, but as long as that 7 years is in there, that's all that matters, right? And then construction of the proposed project is expected to begin in June 2024 and complete in August of 2024. And they have met all 4 requirements for the direct the project description and detail, right? That is required in order for it to be deemed compliant. Then they have all of the information in here for the signatures and whatnot. So they are good to go. Before I input their project detail into the system, I do want to show you another submittal. And so this is from the city of Elk Grove. They were our example that we were able to use in our earlier presentation. And the reason why I'm going to show you this is because it's going to give you just a little bit of a different perspective. Also, even though they did a great job, we still have some questions that we're going to need them to answer for us. And so this is going to give you an idea of what we have to go through and what you may see should the same occur with you. So no issues here. Everything looks great that we're seeing. You see that they're saying that they're doing 273 segments, 235 in future and street segments. They also cited the 2020 needs assessment. Everything else is consistent. And now you see that they literally pulled directly from our sample resolution and how we have this set up in the breakdown for the information to be provided. And what you're going to see here is that it says the following newly proposed projects will be funded in part or solely, right? And so here are all their newly proposed projects. Everything in here looks great. As I'm reviewing, you see that they have a street list is provided in Exhibit A. What I can tell you is that this particular city, when they have to do that because the segments are so long, what they also do is provide a link in the location field when they're entering everything into CalSmart. They provide a link of the information and they say, hey, we're doing work in zones A, B, and C. And here is a list of the complete street segments in which work will provide. You can find that by visiting our website, and then the link is there, right? So any member of their community, constituency, general public can always access that information. And so that's what we're talking about. If you have to use zones, if you have to use those technical terms, instead of being able to list all the locations because it's cumbersome and it's too much, we totally understand, and we have workarounds for that. And so just work with us and we'll work with you on how to do that. The other thing that I want to identify is that they do a general annual project, right? So it could be annual slurry seal, it could be anything that you guys have annually as a project of maintenance repair that you do. Instead of creating specific locations as your project title and your project description, when you're doing a broad-based rehab or maintenance type of project, this is sort of what you would like to do, because what will happen is you have that link, you're identifying general zones. I always tell everybody, end every sentence in your location field. I think it's, unless it's set in stone and you're already in contract or about to be in contract on this project, and locations will not be subject to change, I say it doesn't hurt you to have language in there that says that these locations are simply proposed at this time and may be subject to change based on need, priority, and funding, right? And that's perfectly acceptable for you to do, because like I said, these are all proposed and estimates. So again, they have their schedule in there, that's great. But then we get to this next project, and this is where things can get a little wonky. And so everything's great. We know exactly what the project is. I do love that they put their codes in here for how they track their individual projects that they're reporting or proposing. This also helps us easily identify projects, because sometimes you guys will use almost identical project titles, right, when you're entering them into the system. So if you include some sort of identifier in there, it makes it a lot easier for us with a code to also kind of connect it and say, oh, yep, I got it. I know exactly which one we need to be verifying this against, and we're good to go. And make sure that there's no erroneous linking or relisting of projects. So everything in their description is great. Their location information is great. We get a lot of the location information from here, but they also include a project map in their attachment. And then this would also be a link that they would embed into the location field. But this is where my issue comes. Remember how we said that you guys can fund both pre-construction and construction, and hopefully you guys can see that I've highlighted this particular bullet. Does that show up on the screen? I don't know. Okay, so in this particular bullet, it says staff anticipates that this project will begin preliminary design in 2024 with construction to be complete by the end of 2026. There's absolutely nothing in this description field that is telling me that the city is in any way funding the pre-construction design, feasibility studies, environmental, anything with Armoray in this description. So that leads me to think that they are only truly funding construction. But instead of me getting a construction schedule, I have when preliminary design is expected to begin and when construction is expected to complete. So I don't know exactly what that schedule is. And to me, I don't know if they're funding design and construction with RMRA, or if they're just funding construction. So I have a lot of questions, just because of this one simple bullet, because it's talking about design. It's giving me a start of design. It's not giving me an end of design. It's not giving me a start of construction. It's just giving me an end of construction. So they may be funding both components of the RMRA. They may not. I don't know. And so we want to make sure before they take this to get adopted that we clarify with them, and that we ask them to either clarify and add a schedule for both pre-construction and construction from start to finish for both components, as well as a description of the work that is to be done in the pre-construction component, as well as the construction portion. And then we're going to be good to go, right? If not, then if it's just construction, just give us the construction schedule and remove the mention of design, and we're good, right? It can be a simple one. So there's that. Then the next thing I want to take you to is their section about the fact that they are relisting. So their following is the previously proposed and adopted projects that may also utilize their fiscal year 23-24 revenues in the delivery. And so here they go. And the city, by relisting them in their adopted resolution, by being able to relist them, they are reaffirming to the public as well as the state what their intent is with these funds of the projects with the revenues. And somebody just asked, if you were funding both pre-construction and construction, do they count as two separate projects? No, we have the ability within the system, and I'll show you that, to be able to report it as both pre-construction and construction, enter it in as one. In our system, it separates them as two, but the way that we count them and the way that it is reflected, when we report out, it is going to be a singular project, and that you are funding it from pre-con to con using your RMRA funds in part, for both phases, both components. Again, this is what this is the beauty of the program, right? Thanks to Article, oh my God, what is it, 18? I think it's Article 18. I don't know. It's been a long day, you guys. Article 18, Section B of the California Constitution. This allows you to use the funds for not just construction when it comes to the local streets and roads programs. And so that's a really big deal. So, and then somebody also asked, if a project was funded and included in the previous fiscal year project list, but the project has not begun and funds have not yet been spent, shall they be included in the current fiscal year project list? Only, and this is truly only if they are intended to use the funds that you are going to receive in 23-24. And this is why it's really important that you guys are talking to your finance department, right? When you're putting together your list and you have an idea of where those funds are going to be dedicated or how they're going to be allocated internally. And so it's just to figure that out. Again, because we do not want you guys to have to do erroneous reporting. And so, again, they have that particular paragraph there. And then as you see, and this is the critical part, and I cannot stress this enough, just because you're relisting a project that was previously reported on or adopted in a prior fiscal year does not mean that this project detail doesn't still need to be included. So the 4 components of the required detail must still be included when you are relisting it in your resolution in your adopted list, okay? Just because you've done it before doesn't mean you get to do it again. Or it doesn't mean that you get to list it without having it in there. It needs to be in there every time and updated. Are the funds able to be used on a PCI analysis and assessment? Because I would say that that's a public works need. It would also be considered something that you do. You're creating your pavement, your maintenance pavement index maybe, or your roads, your database of what needs to be improved. And so you're going through and you're logging in different segments and different roads that have to, your pavement management plan. Oh my Lord, this has just been a rough one. So your pavement management plan. So you have to go through and log and find out, what are your priority roads? What are your roads that are at the greatest risk of failure or causing issues for your pedestrians, for your motorists? Essentially, this potentially could be for the same thing. So I would say contact us directly. Let's look into that. I've never gotten that question before. And we would also confer with the state controller's office. I mean, offhand, I would think it could be, but I would never presume to say yes without fully, vetting that through the state controller's office. But I'll make sure that we include that particular question in our frequently asked questions list and or the Q&A list from today's training, and we'll send that out to everybody to get it addressed. We also have a question asking us to please clarify the optional project flexibility statement associated with Streets and Highways Code section 2034. And so would the statement be added as a background whereas statement in the resolution? Yeah, I would say it could definitely be added in as a whereas statement in your resolution. When it comes to identifying the flexibility that you are afforded under the statute and in the program guidelines. And the reason why I say this is something that could be beneficial to put into your resolution is because a lot of you are sitting here asking us, and a lot of times this is because your council members or your board members are having the same, board of supervisors are having the same questions. Well, what do we do if there's a scope change? Are we allowed to make a scope change? What do we do if the priorities have to change? If something happens, how do we go about fixing that? You're answering that question not only to your council and your board of supervisors, but you're also upfront with your constituents, letting them know that we may have to adjust these priorities, and what you see proposed today may not be what we deliver in the course of the next fiscal year. For whatever reason, we may have to postpone it, we may have to pull it all together, or we may have to downscope it, right? Because we had to put funding elsewhere for a greater need. And so we were only able to partially fund it here. And that's totally okay. And so I think it's just something that's very beneficial for you to do. I also think it helps explain to people why sometimes you may have a statement within your location field in the list that gets published through our office. You may include a statement in there that says locations are subject to change pending, priority, availability, funding, whatever it is, feasibility, whatever that particular reason may be, you're kind of letting them know upfront that, hey, this isn't a sure thing. This may have to change for whatever reason, but we're going to make sure that we convey that to you and sort of the reasoning behind and what we've done in its place. So again, the reason why I'm showing you their relisted portion in their resolution is because they ensured that they put in all 4 required components of the detail that is required when you are listing a project. So again, whether it's relisted or newly proposed, you still are required to put that information in there. Okay, so now let's build out Windsor. Oh, I think we have a couple of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and give us that opportunity to address some of those questions that may have come up.
All right, so we had someone, Alicia, asked if you could clarify something that you mentioned earlier. So someone said that you mentioned we could not just do one project. She said that, or you said we had to do 2 projects that were in conjunction with one another. Can you just clarify that?
So that particular question had to do with whether or not you were able to do, I'm sorry, my screen is like half blocked through the Zoom navigation. The complete streets components. So what we stated in there, I'm just going to close this. Let's see if I can find on the local streets and roads page. Here we go. We have our eligibility checklist. And what someone had asked before, and this has come up a couple of times about the eligible project types. Here they are. It's on page 4 of the eligibility checklist. So each project listed must meet the intent and purpose of the funding program that is indicated in Streets and Highways Code and our adopted guidelines. And you're going to see that I have these bold and highlighted because this is technically within the order of what they say is intended by the statute of like what should be prioritized in what order, right? We're not saying that. I'm just letting you know. Per statute and interpretation, when the bill was written, this is kind of what was led as what should be a priority. So they should be prioritized for expenditure on basic road maintenance and rehabilitation projects and on critical safety projects. And so, you know, they want to see that you are prioritizing like deferred maintenance of things of, you know, your basic road maintenance needs, your rehabilitation needs, and your critical safety sort of needs, right? And so then you see the list of road maintenance and rehabilitation, safety projects. A lot of times a railroad grade separation is also considered a safety project, right? Because now you're improving crossings, eliminating incidents of collision or pedestrians becoming injured at a railroad crossing, things, or diverting traffic, impeding emergency services, anything like that, right? And so again, that kind of ties back into a safety. And then we have complete street components. And so this is including active transportation purposes, pedestrian, bicycle safety projects, transit facilities. That transit facilities one is kind of a stretch and it has more to do, like if you have an 80 PCI or higher, you're like, you know, bus stops, park and rides, things like that, right? And drainage and stormwater capture projects in conjunction with any other allowable project. And this is directly from statute. This is not from our guidelines. This is from statute. So it says in conjunction with any other allowable project. And that right there kind of says why you have to have them a part of something else. 9 times out of 10, you know, a bicycle lane being redone, sidewalks being redone and replaced and rehabbed, ADA curb ramps, crosswalks, anything of that nature, drainage, you know, faulty drainage causes erosion in your roadway, which causes the stability, usability of your roadway to falter and need repair. This can be a safety thing. This is rehab and maintenance. So again, you can tie them in. We're just saying, make sure that you are clearly identifying in your project description and in the information that you're providing about this project, that it is not just like an active transportation type of project. It is not just a complete streets component project. It is also going to address safety. It is also going to address, you know, these different aspects that are considered eligible projects. So again, I highlight it because it has become an issue where some have maybe pointed out that it wasn't clear that this is what these purposes were. And so instead of using other fund that was made available to them, or they could have competed for in order to fund these types of things, agencies or jurisdictions maybe chose not to. Instead, they wanted to do complete street works using local streets and roads, and they had other projects or roadways that were in need of repair or rehab that didn't receive it. And so it's a perception thing, right? And so you want to make sure that you're just being very, very clear, and you're not allowing for anyone to misperceive what the intended purpose is of the work that you're performing or what it will include. All right. Again, we're here to help you and also help the public properly understand what it is that you are doing. And it looks like we have another one. Let me mute myself if I can get up there.
All right, Dahlia Manois. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name, but I have unmuted you.
Unmute. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay, thank you. Alicia, the Elk Grove sample that you gave, where it showed they listed the schedule. So how is it that we should say the agency is proposing to use the funds during for preliminary design and construction? What is it that you would prefer to see in the resolution? Because you mentioned it looked like Elk Grove needed to be a little more detail or needed to clarify a little more. Right there.
There
We'll
you go.
begin preliminary design in 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can go ahead and address that right now, and
Okay.
I'll just enter in the information that I'm kind of talking about. So if you are going to do both pre-construction and construction, you would say, let's just, the city will fund, you don't even have to say fund. The city will, my computer is being wonky. The city will perform, let's just say, a feasibility. I can spell feasibility study and environmental or design. Let's just say that,
Mhm.
and design for the following project that will. Oh gosh. I can't, my computer always happens. Okay, that will result in the extension of blah, 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 blah. And so there's the rest of your project description. And so then down here, staff anticipates that this project will begin preliminary design in fall. I mean, let's go,
Oh,
because they have spring and fall or whatever in summer. They have those identified. And so that's totally fine. In the system, you're going to be asked to give a month, but like you can give me a season. That's fine.
okay, I see.
Fall of 2024. And to conclude in winter, let's just say winter 2024. And with construction to begin in spring 2025 and be complete by the end of 2026. And instead of the end, because the end could be fiscal year, the end could be the calendar year. So you could either say by the end of the fiscal year of 2026 or by, just for fun, this is what I'm going to put in here, by June 2026. And so that's what I'm talking about as the type of, so let me try and highlight it. So these are the changes that I'm really talking about when it comes to, you know, identifying and clearly identifying what will be done so that we don't have any questions about exactly what it is that you're funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so, and again, that'll just clearly convey to the public and to the legislature what you're doing with the funds, because a lot of times what happens, and just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background since we're ahead of schedule, and I promise I won't carry on too long, but when the program was initially created, the statute went in, the guidelines were written, the system was built out, everything was presumed to be construction based. And so in that very first year of 2017, when we were finding out the actual work that was being done, where the expenditures were actually going, although all the projects that were proposed for 2017 looked to be construction based, when we got the report of the work that was actually being done, a lot of it was in the pre-construction, in the design, in the pavement management plan that was being developed, and the studies that were being done, things of that nature. And instead, you know, what would have been conveyed to the public is, you know, Joe Public is reading that town of, I don't know, I like making up, you know, Campbell Soup, town of Campbell Soup, did a rehab project, and that it's been active since April of 2017, and they've spent, you know, $40,000 on it, yet Joe Public lives in town of Campbell Soup, and this rehab project that is listed in the locations that they identified is right in front of his house and on his path to work every day, and he hasn't seen anything go on. So now they're questioning what is the legitimacy and accuracy of what they're saying that they're spending their funds on. Whereas if you're identifying that we're spending these RMRA funds on this project in the design component, and we also intend to spend the funds in construction later on, you're completely laying it out and identifying what you intend to do. Joe Public, 9 times out of 10, does not realize the amount of design and prep and pre-con work that has to go on prior to actually executing a roadway maintenance or pavement kind of job. They literally have no idea. So unless we are not explicit and honest and upfront with exactly how it's being used and conveying it simply to them, they are going to have a mistrust of the use of the funds and what you're telling them. And we want to avoid that at all costs. Again, transparency and accountability. And I hope that helps. So I think we have another one.
All right, thank you, Dahlia. Up next is Lawrence Zimmer. You are unmuted. Lawrence, it says you're unmuted.
You may be self-muted.
Are you self-muted maybe?
Yes, I'm so sorry to stretch out
There
your
you
day
go.
longer. So I was fully intending last year with the project that I had listed to add the funds from this year to the same project. So my question is regarding a clarification on what you said about relisting a project and pulling from the expenditure report rather than the proposed project list. But the project from last year, FY 22-23, does not show on my expenditure list. It only shows on my proposed project list, and it's okay to relist from there, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes, it's okay to relist from there. So what I was referring to was this section right here where it says if a project appears in both your fiscal year 21-22 expenditure report and your proposed project list.
Gotcha. Sorry for making you repeat yourself, but thank you for the clarification.
Are you kidding me? I am almost like trauma dumping on you guys, all my information in a very short amount of time. I do not expect you all to keep it completely in order, because half the time in my head, it's not in order. So I get it. Like, this has been my child since 2018. I totally understand. I don't expect you to
And
not clarification.
And so obviously in the resolution, we skip the newly added projects and just go straight to relisting.
Yeah.
From the
Yeah,
second.
so, yeah, so what you would do instead of, you know, this section right here that says newly proposed, you know, you would just erase number 2 and number 3 would then become number 2 and
Yep.
not saying, you know, the following, whatever. And again, just make sure that you have all of the language that you need to have in place.
Got it. Yeah, I already had Celeste look at it, but it said newly proposed project and I just need to correct that. And I will resubmit it for a look before I go forward.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, do we have anybody else? And I can, we can keep doing questions in a minute. I just want to finish going through inputting in the system unless we have anybody else who had their hand raised. Okay. So let me get out of all of this. Okay. So, oh good golly, where was I? Town of Windsor, please don't open in that other window, but you did. There we go. All right. So the reason why I say try your best to build out your resolution and proposed project list as soon as possible. It is going to be one of the easiest things for you when you go to input something into the system. Because if you have it saved in on your desktop, you can copy and paste and put things in. You can do check marks and check boxes to make sure that you have everything there. As we see, Town of Windsor in the resolution that I showed you guys, they're only doing a newly proposed project. Just to double check, I am going to look at what they have identified as their locations, just to see if I see repeat locations or a repeat description at all in here, just to see if by chance they incorrectly identified a project as newly proposed instead of relisted. I can tell you that I do not see that as the case here. And this is new locations, completely new project, and all new schedules. Everything else that they had has either been in progress or this particular Southwest quadrant. Why is that such a hard word for me to say? I do not know, but none of these locations or these neighborhoods appear on the current list that I'm looking at. So that's perfect. So that tells me I don't need to do anything for relisting and I get to skip directly to add new projects. And so in here, I'm going to say their title, whatever title you guys want to come up with, but they have a 2024 pavement preservation project. Yeah, that's what they've called it. If that's the title that you guys want to come up with, that's the title that you would enter, right? So it's whatever you want to do. If you want to include a project ID of any kind, you can. If you want and have it separate and it's something that you internally use to track, you can put that here. You can also put it in parentheses like City of Elk Grove did. Again, that's just something that makes it super easy for us and you to track when you're relisting, because as you see, Project ID doesn't show up in that relisting page of the information. The only thing that you see is like a project title, brief description, status, stuff like that. You're not seeing a ton of information. So whatever would be easiest for you is what I would recommend that you do. So for project type, because they're saying it's a resurface, slurry seal, we're gonna call this a road maintenance and rehabilitation project. It is brand new for the fiscal year of 23-24. The only reason why that came up is autofill for me is because I've already entered in that same information today on my computer. It will not be the case for you. When you guys would click on this here, if it's your first time entering in information for this submittal, you would have to put in the numbers automatically, right? To show the fiscal year. They appear to only be doing construction based on everything that they've included, based on the description that they have provided. I'm gonna say that they're doing pavement rehab existing, possibly something new. You know, they could be adding in, smoothing over some additional stuff, doing a new type of pavement, resurfacing that maybe they weren't doing before. I don't know. So I'm just going to put that in there. Something that I think, gets overlooked a lot is 9 times out of 10, when you guys are doing a pavement project of any kind, you're automatically doing striping, rehab, repair. You may have had an area that did not have a shoulder identified or a bike lane identified, or a turnout. Like this is a big one, there's areas that didn't have turnouts, or now they have stop signs, whatever, as a part of an overall paving thing. So you could do added, new or existing. They identify that they are going to do some sidewalk work, so repair, and if you restriping for bike lanes, I have that up there. Yep, restriping for bike lanes to make more visible. So it's not a new bike lane, but they are doing paving. And I'm going to do new striping installation because they said that they were doing like more visibility. Let's say if they had storm drain or culvert stuff that they were identifying as part of what they were working on, you could add that in here. If there's a stop sign being added or new traffic signals, whatever it is, you could identify that. If you have other information, so what I say other is if there is something that does not show up in here, again, we use very, very generic terms. We're trying to be broad-based because I cannot tell you how many of you use different terminology for a lot of the same work, but you just refer to it differently. So the way it shows up in your resolutions is different. The way that you report out on it is different. So we try to be very, very generic and broad-based for covering in our descriptions that we possibly can. If there is something very unique that does not qualify, you would select other, and that box would then become ungrayed out and locked, and you could enter in whatever information you had. If you had additional information that you wanted to put in there, a lot of times what happens is you guys select the boxes that are relevant to you, but you also like some of the description that you provided in the project description in your resolution because it identifies sort of a need or a justification for why you're proposing it. And I say put that in there. I love to see that type of additional information, and it will be included in the published list. Something I want to show you guys before we move on, because then I won't be able to show you later. So for those that were asking, if you're doing both pre-construction and construction of the same project, do you have to enter it in as 2 projects? Is it included as 2 projects? Nope. We have it right here. You select pre-construction and construction, and what you'll see is that you have project description information that you can include for both pre-construction and construction in here, that you could then identify. You State Assembly, Senate, this is always required. And I did it earlier and I did it again now where I forgot to look at what their State Assembly and Senate was before I got in here. Again, we're going to go in and clean this up and correct it. No big deal. But that is a required field. And again, that is because we have a lot of requests that come in from the legislature to get this information to them on a very quick turnaround of the historical work that your cities and counties are doing. Something to remember is that this last year, the state of California did its redistricting maps. I forgot to mention this to the other people. Darn it, they're gonna, if they don't remember, this is the one I should post. The redistricting maps for the Senate and Assembly all occurred this past year in 2021. It went into effect in 2022. That means that for some of you, the Senate and Assembly districts that you had before are no longer your Senate and Assembly districts that you would be reporting or identifying on this year. So I strongly encourage you to look up your own information on the LEDGE websites for California state government, for Assembly and Senate, and US Congress. And just make sure that the projects that you're reporting on and where you're identifying as your Senate or Assembly district is accurate based on what that new districting map is. Okay. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm not the LEDGE staff here, but I've just ran into that problem. So I want to let you guys know and give you a heads up that that's something to be on the lookout for. So again, we're just gonna put in some random numbers here because I messed up. When we look at their useful life, they say they have an estimated useful life of 7 years. In our guidelines, we do not ask for a minimum or maximum, but in the project detail that we collect, we do ask for a min and maximum. And a lot of times this is because, and again, when this was all created, it was originally anticipated everything was sort of like a capital project and everybody operated the same. It does not. So, average it out as long as that number 7, which is in the resolution, shows up. That's great. So I'm just going to put 7 as the maximum and the minimum, 4. We'll kind of break it even, right? Estimated total project cost. This is not a requirement for you to include at the time of proposed project listing. We encourage you to put it in there if you want to, but you do not have to. And this is all costs, not just RMRA portions. This is the whole kit and caboodle. And then for the project locations, I don't know if you guys are noticing this, but what I am doing is going in and just because this document already exists, I just am copying and pasting it directly in there. I'm ensuring that it is consistent. They said June of 2024 is what they have as their start date. And then August of 2024 is their completion date. And so we have that in there. I'm going to say yes to complete street components because that's a little bit of what they included in there, but it doesn't have to be what you identify. We have little descriptions of what this means and why that's in there. And it gives you hover over the question mark and it'll give you a brief explanation. Why are we asking for additional elements? Because additional elements are outlined in the statute. So it's something that we ask for. You also have an area that you can provide a description of. If you're done and you want to hit save and exit, that'll take you out of the submittal process. You are saved and exited from this project entry and you will not, you're out of this portion of it. If you hit save and continue, this will take you back to the proposed project list and relisting page from expenditure reporting. If you hit save and duplicate, it is going to give you essentially a copy paste almost of a lot of the information that you had already just put in here, saving the information that you already created. A lot of times we see this if you guys have a project, let's say you have 2 annual projects that you're doing, and one is a slurry seal, and then the other one, let's say, is like a total rehab, whatever it is, because we see, you know, multiple annual type of projects like this coming through. The locations are going to be different, but everything else, like your state senate is going to be in there, your min max, you're going to have to update. Your schedule is going to have to still be updated, but other than that, like almost everything else carries over, and you're just going to tweak what you need without totally reinventing the wheel, which is really nice. So now that we've done all of this, we've entered that in, I'm going to hit save and continue so I can show you through the rest. Did I not? I did. So save and exit. I'm sorry. I don't know what I did. So now I'm hitting cancel and getting out. So save and continue, I guess, now gives you just a brand new page. Save and exit. We did some tweaks and I didn't realize this. So save and exit is taking you back to the relisting page. If you have nothing else to do for relisting and skip to add new projects, you would just come back either to your dashboard or to your submittals. And for me, I'm going to go back to submittals, and you'll see if you select create fiscal year proposed project list submittal, it's not going to let you do another one. One's already been created. It could take you to your agency submittals page, which will show you the one that you've already created, or you can contact us. If you want to see an Excel spreadsheet of what you have submitted in the past or what you just entered in detail, you can do that by selecting the view proposed project list page. You can identify just the fiscal years that you want to look at. So this is something that in preparation to doing your project list, I totally say, like, this does not hurt you to do, is to, let's say, come to this page, log into CalSmart. So you log into CalSmart, you're in your dashboard, select fiscal year proposed project list submittals, go to view proposed projects, and you know that the 2022-23 list shows up for you for relisting, right? And so you can go in here and say, okay, here's that project. I want to export that to Excel so I have it and I can check it against the rest of my information to see if maybe this is a project I need to relist. Also, you already have all the information there. Why reinvent the wheel if you have to relist? The other thing that you would do is go to the reporting tab, do the same thing for view expenditure project reports. It's only your city or county, so you're going to identify that. For the period, you're going to come down to fiscal year 21-22, hit apply, and then again you would export that out, and you would be able to identify what it is that you're looking at and what projects maybe that you need to relist if you needed to relist anything. Also, all your information's already there. You just have to update schedules and maybe location or some scope detail if needed. So that's a really good prep to get ready for submitting and doing your submittal kind of tip. So back to your submittals, we're going to go to the manage fiscal year proposed project list submittals. You see Town of Windsor, all of these are green, all of these are green. And then you come down here and you see one that has this yellow triangle with an exclamation mark. You're going to select that. Here you can see that you can view the files that you uploaded. You can create a PDF, submit for review, review your history. So anytime that it's been submitted, created, if it's been sent back for edits, anything like that, that's going to show up under that history tab. If you need to relist a project from a prior year, let's say somebody got out of it or it timed out and you don't know where you're at and what you need to do to kind of finish up or pick back up where you left off and you have to go back into that list, you can do so by selecting that. If you still need to add a new project, you can do so here before you hit submit for review. What I always recommend that you do, let's say you have already submitted to local streets and roads, your resolution for review. We've already seen it. We think it's great. Or you are coming into CalSmart because you want to build out your list and make it as an attachment to your resolution for that you're going to submit for adoption for eligibility. I truly love this because when you submit or when you create that PDF, if you scroll down, everything that you entered that is required by statute will show up in this PDF, along with some additional information, right? That like you don't necessarily need. But to ensure your compliance, you can go in with, again, a book holder document that you upload to let you get past the intake page and build out your proposed project list that you want to have in there. And, you know, in your PDF, you can show that, you know, these are the projects, Exhibit A are projects that you are listing or even relisting. You can adjust your PDF. If you have Adobe and you have edit rates to it, you can adjust it a bit. You can add in numbers to it that say, you know, Exhibit A number 1 is newly proposed. Exhibit B or Exhibit A number 2 is previously proposed and relisted. You know, you have tons of options. Work with us. Let us know how we can help you advise this. If you want to kind of streamline your process and really help you, we created this PDF portion for this very reason. It's a surefire way to ensure that you are compliant, providing all of your required detail. So let's get out of that. So let's say we've done all this. I've said everything looks great. I'm going to go to submit for review. Here's my message. You will no longer be able to edit the submittal once you've hit yes. You have to understand that once it's with us, whether we are reviewing it or we have approved it, it's completely locked out from you. You cannot change it until the expenditure reporting period for that fiscal year then comes up, and then that data reappears and you can start making adjustments to it as needed. So then we have it, you get a notice that it has been submitted successfully, you select OK. You'll also receive emails to your registered email that says it has been submitted. And then once it's approved, you'll also get a notification that it's been approved. So that is really it for the way of CalSmart. I can go into the frequently asked questions, or I can dive into a couple of other things if you would like. Somebody asked, which project descriptions would you select for an assessment of hardware, software, and operation of traffic control services or devices? You could do that as a program operational need. That's what I would recommend, you know, adding that as your component, right? And then under that description, there's like studies, feasibility studies. That might be something that you would have as like a study or an assessment that's going on, and then add additional information or other, and then you can provide a greater description. Can you submit a total amount more than what is in the estimates? I'm not 100% sure what we're talking about. Submit a total amount, right? Do you mean you can submit more work than what is estimated for you to receive, like that the RMRA would cover? If that's sort of what you're asking for, it is not necessarily intended, especially like some of these jurisdictions are receiving, like you saw, like 100,000, 10,000, 50,000 in a year. So it's not intended that these funds are going to fully fund your projects. You as a city or county are going to need to identify how to allocate the funds that you receive from this formulaic program to best deliver these projects, right? Whether you are solely funding it with Armoray or only partially funding it with Armoray, we don't care. As long as it's receiving $1 of Armoray, you're using Armoray funds to deliver this project in some way. That's when you want to identify it to us. So the total value cost of these projects might be in the millions, tens of millions of dollars, and you're only receiving about 700,000 in a fiscal year. But that doesn't change the value of the projects. And so if the value of the projects is higher than that, that's totally fine. But this isn't a reimbursement program. So you're not coming to us saying, hey, we did this project that's worth, $8 million. We only received 700,000. And so we want to ask for another, couple 100,000 or $1 million in RMRA funds to reimburse us for this work. It doesn't work that way. You have formulaic funds, and it is up to your city council or county board of supervisors and your budgetary team and finance to figure out how to best budget for these projects and allocate the funds accordingly. Let's see. Do we have any more raised hands? If not, all right, perfect. I think I got most of the questions that came up in the chat as well. Can we use future Armoray funds on previous listed approved projects? The construction cost estimate during design phase is higher than Armoray fund provided in previous years. I don't know if I'm understanding you 100% in your question. So, because when we talk about future RMRA funds being used, so we're saying that you've identified, let's say, what is estimated for you to receive in a year or two, right, in your RMRA funds for a project that you started last year. And you're saying we are going to advance this project using other funds and then reimburse ourselves with the RMRA funds so that once they come in, so that we can get this project delivered because it is a priority. So you're borrowing against your future fund, right? There is risk to that. It is allowed per statute. You're allowed to do so. Your risk to that becomes the other source funds that you're using. Are they allowed for that use or purpose? Number one. Number two, what happens if, let's say, COVID-19 impacts where everyone lost about 8% of their projected revenues for that fiscal year? The revenues dropped about 6% as to what was estimated for this upcoming fiscal year because of the governor's revised budget. So what happens to your repayment or reimbursement schedule based on, those things, right? So you risk not being able to repay back because this is formulaic and it will adjust based on actual revenues collected. You're not guaranteed a certain amount of money every year. So that is something to keep in mind. But again, it is allowable. The other thing is you will not report to us as the commission that you have spent those future funds until you have actually accrued those future funds and you then are able to key in those fiscal years that you've actually spent them, right? And it's for that particular project. So there are ways to do it. It is allowed. It can just become complicated. So you really just want to pick and choose when you're doing that and make sure that a risk needs assessment has been done with your financial team to make sure that the city or county can withstand that. And we have a hand raised. So what I want to do just really quickly before we go to hand raising. Okay. Okay, so I think the person who asked that question that I just addressed, I think they have their hand raised, so we want to call on them. And then after this one, I just want to go to our frequently asked questions because I think some of what I'm seeing come up might be addressed in there. And then we can go in and just keep talking for as long as you guys want, okay? Well, not all the whole time, but you know what I mean. Okay,
Thank you, Alicia.
of course, Dahlia.
Okay, so thank you for answering that. That does answer another question that I had. But for the question that I posted, say we have, I don't know, say $1 million to fund 5 projects. We're in the design phase and it looks like the project cost is 2 million. Can we use 23, 24 funds to fund the excess amount? We're not in construction yet, it's still in design. So that's kind of my question is, it looks like it's more than what we're receiving. So can we use, can we list the previous projects in 23, 24?
Oh yeah, no, if that's where, again, if that's where your finance team is
Mhm.
saying like, yeah, you know, we need to be able to have these funds to do this project. This is a project that we proposed in 22, 23. Estimates were low, actual bids coming in are much higher. So we need to offset that difference, right? And your most current and easily accessible amount of fund is going to be your next insurgents of your 23, 24 apportionments. That's totally fine. Just relist it in your resolution. You can completely do that. And again, this is where that flexibility stuff comes in. That was written into statute. You have the flexibility to change your priorities, to adjust, to make a project multi-year funded. That's up to you as your jurisdiction based on your needs and in the funding that you have and what you have the capabilities to do and what your city council or county board allows you to do, right? That's not, that has nothing to do with us here at the commission. As long as you're identifying it and you're reporting out on it, that's all that matters to us. And it's eligible.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. So real quick, and then whomever is asking in regards to where can you find your city's MOE estimate, your maintenance of effort estimate. So that is going to be directly with the state controller's website in their audits division that is dedicated to RMRA SB1. When this legislation passed, there were 3 fiscal years identified to establish the baseline of what was the maintenance of effort, which is the amount of general fund that you are to spend every given year for public works, roads needs, and in order to meet that, right? And that was submitted back in like 2017, 2018. The state controller's office holds that, as well as your Department of Finance, or whoever that is in your budgets team, in your individual jurisdiction. They're going to have that information along with the state controller's office. We do not have that. My favorite phrase in the world is I have nothing to do with maintenance of effort. And I'm okay saying that. So for frequently asked questions, again, these are going to just kind of be same old, same old. We are relisting the same projects from last year. Do we still need a new resolution? Heck yeah, you do. It needs to be current every year. If it's not, you are not eligible. Can we use your capital improvement plan adopted for the coming fiscal year for your proposed project list? No. You know, it does need to be individual. It needs to be its own standalone item. Truly, to the best of your ability, please make sure that it is, because this is where we see a big issue with eligibility, and then it becomes very convoluted if you have to make corrections because you weren't compliant or complete with the detail that was required, because now you're not just making changes to a specific item regarding the local streets and roads program and your eligibility for that. You may have to make adjustments to your CIP or to other budgetary things that like we don't want you to have to do. So just again, make it a standalone. The other aspect of that is a lot of times what happens is the CIP that was adopted in the same meeting or a prior meeting is then cited as the exhibit for the project list, but there is a major issue that in that CIP detail, there is absolutely none of or only a portion of the required project detail that is mandated in statute and the guidelines. So again, not compliant, not complete. Where can you access your proposed list submittal feature, or when can you access? It is currently open. You know, go in it, play around, contact us if you need help. We are here to help you. Use the slides that we'll be sending you. It may not be today. It'll more than likely be tomorrow because we've been doing these trainings since first thing this morning, but just know you will be getting them. So go ahead, play around, let us know what we can help you with, and just be patient with us for the next couple of hours into tomorrow, and then we will be all yours. If you have changes in status updates for previously proposed projects, can you make those now? No, not unless you are relisting them. All right. So unless you're relisting them, you're not updating any information. And if you're not relisting them, then you just have to wait until the expenditure reporting period for that applicable report. And then you end those projects and you'll update them then. If you relist a project for the upcoming fiscal year, do I still need to report it in the annual expenditure report? Yes, these are not one in the same. They have fully different purposes. They're done at different times of the year. The information that you are capturing and for the fiscal year that you are capturing it are going to be different. So again, yes, you still need to do it. So the current status of the MOE requirement, maintenance of effort. Again, any questions need to go to State Controller's office. COVID-19 impacts had some changes made to it that were temporary. Those have since lifted. It is now fully reinstated. So again, just our guidelines identify what the maintenance of effort is. State Controller's office identifies the maintenance of effort and their role in it, and then how they evaluate. Any questions that you have for it, please, please, please go to them, because I cannot for the life of me answer it. I wish I could help you there, but I regretfully and gratefully cannot. What happens if we missed your July 1st submittal deadline of 11:59 p.m.? Again, all edits will be accepted until August 1st, right? Because we adopt in August, we publish in August, and it's the beginning and mid of August. So what that means to me, again, is if you can get me your draft resolution and your list in the system by July 1st at 11:59 p.m. And let's say in the subsequent week or two, you will be adopting it at a meeting, you know, we can consider you still eligible for initial eligibility. Talk to us, let us work with you. Because we have an edits period that is still open until August 1st, which means that we can send that back to you. We can say like we're tentatively reviewing it for compliance based on your submittal of the executed documents. So all of that's fine. Now, if let's say after the second week of July, you still would not be able to get your resolution adopted in front of your city council, you can't take action until August or early September, you have to come in for your subsequent eligibility, and that will be as of September 30th, okay? And again, don't wait to tell us if there's a problem. I don't care if you guys are low on staff, somebody messed up, somebody just flat out forgot, whatever it is, just contact us and let us know, let us help you and walk through it with you, and you will be golden. I promise you, we are only successful if you are successful. Here are all your resources. This is everything available to you, everything that we've talked about, State Controller's office, their emails, everything for their guidelines, everything's connected. Again, League of California Cities, State Association of Counties, the Almanac where you're going to get your estimates, everything's in there. Thank you so much for your time. All questions regarding the program, please, please, please send to this inbox. Do not individually reach out to myself, Celeste, or Leanne, not even Zach, who likes to help out, but he abandoned us, you know, a while back ago to work in a different department within the commission. So if you reach out to the LSR inbox, we will be able to assist you in a more timely fashion. We rotate covering that, and so we can respond a lot quicker. And yes, it is a lot of information to process, and we are so happy to keep discussing it with any of you should you need it. And we can set up one-on-ones if you guys need them too. I just truly appreciate your dedication and time to sitting in on the workshop. Will this recording of the presentation be made available to the attendees? Well, yes, either this one or the morning version is going to be published and put up. But we do log all the questions, all the Q&A stuff that happens, whether it's verbally or in chat or in the system. We capture all of that, and we also send that out to all of you, whether you attended the workshop or not. So everything will be included in some facet in the coming days, as soon as we all get it ready and ADA compliant for posting. All right, so I'm just going to pause our recording. I'm going to take myself off of mute. Please take the next 10 minutes if you need to download anything that was included in chat. And again, email us if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.